All right. Thank you for joining us. This is Love and Movies. I am your co host, Thomas, and I'm joined with.
The other co-host, Morgan. Hope you guys are doing good. Sorry for the delay in podcasts.
Yeah, unfortunately, we've had a lot of hiccups and a lot of crazy stuff going on, and our personal life is a little chaotic right now. It will slowly progress as we get closer to the end of the year. I've got a lot of logs in the fire, so once those burn down, we'll be a little bit better. We're going to try and be better even before that, though, but
Yeah.
we'll try and get at least a weekly episode. Today, this week, we are talking about The Conjuring 2, which is technically, well, it's The Conjuring 2, Conjuring the Devil Among Us. I think they're releasing or have released another one in theaters. There's The Nun 2, Annabelle Comes Home, and Annabelle Awakening. I think that's right. There's like 7 or 8 movies within the Conjuring universe. So this technically is number 2 in alphabetical order, essentially from when they were filmed. Chronologically, this is closer to the end of the series. This was actually done in 1977 is the chronological date.
Yep. So if you guys haven't listened to the other episodes, we so far have done Conjuring 1 and The Nun 1 and 2. We are going by Thomas's recommendation of storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys think that it's like, wait, you guys are doing out of order, there's a method to the madness, I guess we should say.
Yeah. So just to reiterate, because the Nun 1 and 2 don't really introduce the Warrens per se, it's sort of like this weird introduction to the universe. Like if you're going to do it like by truly chronological order, because you'd watch the Nun 2, Annabelle, Annabelle Awakening, um, Annabelle. I think it's Annabelle Creations. Either way, whatever the first Annabelle or the sequel to Annabelle,
Yeah.
and then the third Annabelle movie, I think, and then you'd get the Warrens, which is the Conjuring 2, the Conjuring, the Devil Among Us. Um, so it's sort of like it's supposed to be the Conjuring universe, but if you wait that long to be introduced to the people who it's about, really, it's sort of like this weird thing. So we were doing it in this first movie that came out originally, The Conjuring, which I think was like 2006 or something. Can you hear her?
I can hear. So you guys are probably hearing our cat right now. She needs
Is
some
playing with ice cubes.
attention.
No, she's playing with ice cubes. I figured out what she was freaking out about. There was 4 ice cubes on the floor in front of our freezer. So I think maybe your dad came in and got ice. And this is her. This is how when she plays with ice cubes. This is what she does. She just goes crazy and she starts. Oh, that sounds pitiful.
So I guess now you guys know we have a cat. We actually have 2. So just that's Rogue that you're hearing, and just try to ignore her while we try to continue.
It sounds like
our
she got
talk.
closer.
Yeah. That is her playing meow, not her. I have horrible parents meow.
Like she is the craziest cat because she really does have this like connotation. She's actually in here meowing at me right now.
Oh, okay. She knows.
Hi,
She knows you're
Lovey.
talking about us.
Yes.
About her.
Hi, Lovey. It's okay.
Okay, so Lisa, we're talking Conjuring 2.
Yes.
Um, so this is the 2026 or the 2016
Yeah.
movie.
Yes.
Um, the second Conjuring.
Hmm.
Um, they actually say this is the third installment of The Conjuring, but like I said, we've got other movies in the Conjuring universe. Um, so we're in the 70s, which
77.
um, The Conjuring 1 was the 70s.
1970.
Okay. So we've jumped ahead like 7 years in the Warrens' life. Um, One thing that's kind of interesting, if you don't know about Ed and Lorraine Warren, they actually did investigate the Amityville house. Um, so, like, the movie starts there, and I think it's a seance that they're doing, but um, Lorraine kind of gets a vision, and she basically gets a premonition of her husband dying.
Yeah, it's sort of like a weird premises because if you don't know any of the story, so Lorraine um, Warren is clairvoyant, psychic, um,
Maybe both.
both has visions from God, is what they say. Um, it's like, I mean, who knows? Well, I mean, it's a whole bunch of
Yeah.
different things going on, right? Um, so originally, she gets this weird vision in Amityville, which you find out actually in the Conjuring. So it's sort of weird, right? Like
Yeah.
in the Conjuring, like this weird thing happens where they don't really want to go on another case. Something happened. Amityville just happened, or like, um,
Well, no, basically, she sees the premonition of her husband dying, so she
yeah,
wants to stop because she doesn't want her husband to die.
yeah, which is logical. I mean, that's a logical thing. But
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like the weird timeline setup because this actually said so. Like, I swear in the movie it actually said 1974 when they went down to this house. But on the Google thing, the Google search, it says 1970. So I'm a little confused because like it's like Ed literally says in this movie, "Is that why you locked yourself away for 8 days when we got home?" So it wasn't like in the timeline, it didn't seem like it was that big of a jump.
No.
Like it was like not a couple years because shit, I would not if I after 8 days of being locked away, I would not or 7 years after that incident, it would not be my first thought process. It would be like, well, that's fucked, you know?
Well, don't they jump ahead? So, what we're talking about is we're talking about The Conjuring 1, like at the end. Is it at the end where they are like kind of at a university showing videos? So it's kind of like a class,
No,
but,
no,
or,
that's the very beginning.
okay, very beginning.
Yeah.
Um,
So what
and
happens is I'm sorry to interrupt, but at the very beginning of the movie, they show Ed and Lorraine in the class, and then the mother and the wife of the family is there and she's watching them speak, and then they jump back in time to like 1973 or something, and they go almost like a full year in this house with all these crazy things starting to happen, and then the mom is like, oh, the Warrens are going to be here, I'm going to go see the Warrens. And so at the end of them lecturing, she goes out to meet them, which is like a year later, but that's the very intro at the beginning, and then they jump back in time, so by like a year.
but basically we see a video which or not a video because they didn't do video back in the 70s.
Yeah, they
um
did.
okay, well, either way, we see a projection on the screen, And that's why we watched The Nun, because it turns out this is Frenchie from The Nun many, many years later,
Yeah.
who is still possessed. And he basically looks at Lorraine. She gets a vision, which we never know during those other movies what the vision is. And we find out now, oh, it's a vision of my husband's death. And then I have it a second time in The Conjuring 2 when we're at the Amityville house.
Hmm.
So that's why she wants to quit. But as always with movies, a
There'd be no
priest has
story.
come. Yeah, the priest has come to the door, plays them a recording. There's this family in England that needs their help, so they need to go. And before we get to that point in the movie, we're already, us as the viewer, are already seeing the house in England and the stuff that's going on, which is basically a single mother. The husband has left, with her four kids in this townhouse in England, and there's something there attacking, I guess, one of the middle kids, the youngest daughter.
But
And
the house is sort of like in my opinion, that house should have been condemned anyway because like in the back, like there's like decay and mold, and I don't know if it's supposed to be like this artistic thing where like only the audience can see it, but the family doesn't see it, sort of thing. But it doesn't really look that way because there's like scenes where like there's a giant hole in the wall and they stick their head through the hole and like have a conversation sort of thing, and it's like
I
what?
mean, the house is not in tip top shape because we actually see the mom on the phone with the council trying to get something like, I don't know how it works in England. I don't know their processes, but basically she's trying to get help with the house because it's falling apart.
It sounds like
So
Section 8, like our equivalent of Section 8.
yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know how it works. Could be a Section 8 thing like we have here. It could be that's just how they do things, and the council is responsible for, I don't know. But either way, um, we see everything happening, and what's so funny, what, not funny, but like, first time I watched it was what, your second time?
I don't think so. I think it was my first time because I don't remember seeing it.
Okay.
So,
So that's another thing. This is now we finally actually have a movie that neither one of us have seen, and we got to see it for the first time together,
yes.
which is, as you'll probably find out during this run of podcast, is an extremely rare thing. Um, but like when I was watching it, um, in the Warren's house, you're getting images of the nun. Lorraine and her daughter see the nun, apparition of the nun down the hallway at their house. Ed is woken up early in the morning and I guess has had a dream about the nun and is painting a portrait of it, which, why you would paint a portrait, I don't know. I don't think I would do that. I might like doodle in a notebook and then like toss it, but
Or in the
um,
notebook.
yeah, he literally painted it, and we later see hangs it up on the wall, which I would definitely would not have done.
It seems
Um,
like it's their office too.
yeah, but still, like, we know what the nun looks like. It is a creepy, scary thing. If you've painted that, and it's a still creepy looking painting, why would you hang it on the wall? Um,
Rogue.
so we're seeing like basically the nun demon showing
Valak.
itself to the Warrens, but then over in England in this family's house, something is haunting them, and it is supposedly the previous tenant or owner, who was this old guy who died in the creepy chair in the corner of the living room, which, again, this chair is creepy. It is old. It is leather that is cracking and like,
It's a well used chair.
yeah, why wouldn't you toss it? Like, I don't care how hard you up are on furniture and money to like buy furniture, but they had a couch. They had two other chairs in that living room. You can chuck that creepy, disgusting, old, used chair and probably been
Maybe,
done with it.
maybe it was super, super comfy.
It did not look super, super comfy.
I mean, honestly, like my thought process is, I mean, obviously she was extremely hard up. Husband just left, obviously ex-husband at that point. Um, Found out he was having two kids with some person down the road.
Yeah.
Um, so this is around Christmas time, it looks like as well. So the weather is bad. Kid is getting in trouble in school because one of the very first scenes that we get introduced to her, she's with her friend who's smoking. Her friend is smoking, and then gives the cigarette to the other girl, and she gets in trouble because she has it. Um, what else? I mean, there's obviously one of her kids is being bullied because he has a speech impediment.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, it's just a lot of stuff for one individual to handle, and then of course this crazy stuff starts happening, right? You know, and it's very subtle at the very beginning. It's not like it's like all of a sudden, pictures are flying off the wall and kids are floating, and no, it's very very subtle. Um, like one of the kids wakes up in the middle of the night, sort of thing, goes downstairs and hears a voice or something, gets
Yeah.
spooked, runs back away. The second night, different kid, similar things, goes to use the bathroom or get a cookie or something, comes back upstairs and toys are playing by themselves, and it progressively ramps up until then people are starting to float. By that time, though, like people are getting involved more, like um, television crews, the police. They call the police one night, um, and then the police see it happen. So by the time they get Ed and Lorraine in the picture, it's like full blown somebody about to die sort of situation.
Shit has hit the fan.
The shitteth have hitteth the fanneth
Yeah.
the fan.
But
Yes.
like, honestly, like when we were first watching it and seeing you've got the nun over at the Warrens and like this other um thing over
Bill
in England,
Wilkinson.
like I didn't understand like why are they showing the nun when this old guy that died in the house is like I didn't put two and two together um to see like, oh, it turns out, which by the way, spoiler alert guys, um the demon that is the nun is controlling the old man that is terrorizing the family in England. So it all full circles, but I didn't see that the first, like I didn't see it until like, oh, okay, I get it now.
You didn't put two and two together.
Yeah, like, and I feel like I've been better about that lately, like especially since we started dating because you're so good at seeing um Easter eggs and different little things in movies and pointing them out. So I feel like I've gotten better. So I am very surprised that I didn't be like, it's really the nun.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not really like this great tie-in either, though. That like obviously that it's a foreshadowing event, but at the same instance, like you think it's sort of like two stories in one, right? Where
Yeah.
the Warrens are having their own little chaos party, and the family in England is having their own little chaos family party, family chaos party. And so it seems like it's two separate events, but eventually it becomes one tied in event because obviously it's Valak, who's the demon's name, um, is controlling Bill Wilkinson, who is the uh, dead person who died in the couch. He's his haunting.
Yeah.
So, but in my opinion, out of all of the Conjuring, I feel like this one is the not necessarily the worst because I haven't seen Annabelle Creations or Awakening or whatever it's called, and then Annabelle Comes Home. I haven't seen those, so I can't say if it's the worst yet, but it's pretty bad. It's not great by any stretch. Um, like, not a lot of scare scenes. Um,
Yeah, I
you
did
know,
not jump as badly watching this movie than the other three movies we've watched so far.
yeah. For a horror movie, it was fairly tame. There are some spooky scenes, like they have this crooked man. He's a nursery rhyme thing. It seems like in England.
Well,
Um,
it takes the demon, or Bill Wilkinson takes the form of um the crooked man, which is a nursery rhyme.
yeah. Um, so it takes the form of that, and that's pretty creepy because it's like a weird demonic.
Like, it looks like a monster to begin with, and then
Uh,
when you've got like a demon that has taken its form, it's
yeah,
like, ooh.
I mean, it sort of reminds me of the Batman who laughs without the spikes on his hat. Like, just paint the hat red, remove the spikes, and you have the Batman who's laugh, but like 7 feet, 8 feet tall. I
And
mean, super.
that's totally your kind of reference, because I don't know that part of Batman's story.
So essentially, it's the Batman becomes the Joker combination.
Oh,
So yeah, it's actually it's super good, super good. Um, because like it's a no holds bar Batman, like is literally what it becomes to. But he's clinically insane, like clinically.
so a little background information, guys. Thomas is a comic book nerd. Do we want to say nerd?
I mean,
Um,
aficionado.
yeah,
Even though I'm not that great with them, like I do like comics, and I know obviously great comics, and I've been reading on and off for God a long, long time.
most
Um,
of your life.
yeah, pretty much most of my life. So like, but I wouldn't say like I'm so good where you'd want to hire me to like praise something or be
Yeah,
like I can talk about it. I know them well enough, but it's not like I'm that person who'd be like,
you know your storylines and
yeah, yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
You know,
Like
so
any good fan should like
yeah,
that's what I. But
but
anyway, that's the Crooked Man sort of reminds me of the Batman Who Laughs. I think that's a great analogy if you get it. If you don't, uh,
Google it.
think the Slim Man. If you know that story, you don't know the Slim Man. That's a no. So
No.
the Slim Man is another. It's actually the internet created the Slim Man. So back in like 2006, seven maybe, um, there was these stories going around about this extremely tall creature, probably about 7 foot, 8 foot, who was extremely slim. And one of the things he would do is abduct, kill children. So pretty much the same concept, but it was
Okay.
more, huh?
Okay. So yeah, that makes sense to me, since that is. I mean, it was the crooked man in the movie was going after the kids.
Yeah,
So
for the
yeah,
most part, for
yeah,
most of the movie until the end.
yeah. Um, but yeah, I do agree. Going back to kind of like movies, um, this was probably my least. Like, if I had to rate the ones we've seen so far, so
Yep.
Conjuring 1 and 2, Nun 1 and 2, this would be 4 out
Yeah.
of all the movies. So this would be the lowest one I would rate. Um,
I mean, mine would pretty much go The Conjuring, The Nun 2, The Conjuring 2.
I'd actually like, yeah, that's what I agree with. Because like, I definitely jumped and got scared more on the first Conjuring and the first Nun. Now, also, I don't know if it's because like watching the Conjuring one and the Nun one, I didn't know who the monster was. So that's what made me scared more. Whereas the second ones of these movies, I kind of knew basically it's the nun. So like I knew to be on the look for a nun.
But realistically, though, like I think about The Conjuring, The Nun 1, even The Nun 2. Like there was a lot of instances where it was the gotcha, nope, not now, but now I gotcha, sort of
Yeah.
thing. Where this, it wasn't even like that. It was sort of like you look down briefly and then boom, there it is. It's like, oh, okay. Like, when
More startling than anything.
yeah, startling. When Patrick Wilson, who plays Ed Warren, I'm looking at it. That's how I know. Um, when he's in they're going to for the final confrontation of Valak, which is the demon, the nun. Um, he goes into the little boy's tent where this is how the crooked man comes about, because they have this little tin, um, small, think like Ferris wheel, but instead of you riding it, it projects pictures. If I explained that correctly,
Yeah, I forgot
um,
what it's called, but
yes, I
yeah.
don't know what it's called, and it's projecting the pictures. This thing starts going off. Ed is partially blind at this point. He gets sprayed in the face. All spoilers, by the way. Sorry, yeah, this is a spoiler podcast. I hope if you we should have probably said something in the beginning, but too late. Anyway,
I
um,
said spoiler alert already, so
yeah.
hopefully we're good.
Um, he's partially blind from being sprayed in the face. He's leaning in close, and you can see this image of the guy going around, and then all of a sudden it's empty. So obviously he appears somewhere because that's what they always do. So as he looks up, he gets a smiling face of razor blade piranha teeth in his face, and obviously it's the Crooked Man, and he says something
I thought
like,
he
"This
just
is
like
my son."
yas at him.
Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember. And then he like jumps into the wall and destroys half the house when coming through the other side, and like that was probably the scariest scene in the whole movie. Actually, no, the nun scene where she's in the picture. I did
Yeah.
like that scene, but
But I
outside of
mean,
that, like,
like I think like when we first talked about the Conjuring one, it was like, oh yeah, I had like a blanket and I had to keep covering myself with a blanket. I still had a blanket. It was more of a comfort thing, but I wasn't like hiding behind the blanket watching this movie.
yeah, I feel like one of the things I liked about the other three is that even though they were a scary movie and it wasn't like constantly back to back scares, there was story building and things of that nature. And then as of course it got to the end, everything ramps up, right? The third act.
Yeah.
um but there was enough time between scares and other things where I was like, I wouldn't get bored, or like my thoughts, I wanted to know more of what was going on
Yeah.
in the Conjuring 2. I was waiting. Like I was like, okay, when's the scare gonna happen? We're still talking about the family. When's the scare gonna happen? Like, when is it gonna get scary? When is this gonna happen? When am I gonna get an adrenaline rush? Because I honestly, like, I fell asleep a couple different times. Like it
Well,
was,
so we tend to watch the movies twice before we do the podcast. So the first time we watched it, neither one of us fell asleep. But the second time, halfway through, Thomas fell asleep. We had to stop it because he was falling asleep, and we had to find another day to rewatch it. Um, so yeah, just the fact you fell asleep is saying something, because it wasn't like we were watching it like midnight or super late. Like,
it was like 6 o'clock.
yeah,
And we didn't do anything that day. It's not like we like ran 1,000 errands, and like, and my body was just like, and you're relaxed. No, I was like, it was a pretty chill day for us.
Yeah.
But just watching that movie, because like after I was like, all right, I need to take a break, and I went to do other stuff, and I stayed up till like normal 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just that I was that bored where like I fell asleep, and we don't. Also, just to clarify, we don't watch them like back to back. Like we don't watch it one time and then another time. That's sort of that'd be intense.
Yeah.
But we watch it like we'll watch it one day, talk about it a little bit, and then go back through and watch it a second time to make sure like we didn't miss any important details, that we know um, the gists of it, as well as to be like, was our initial judgment correct, sort of thing,
Yeah.
and then actually talk about it.
Which one good thing about like this time, when we watched it back the second time,
Mm-hmm.
there were scenes at the Warren's house where you actually see the demon's name in the background. And we didn't catch that the first time. So it's a good thing that we did watch it a second time, because like I think the first time I saw it, I had to pause it and like rewind and be like, hey, Thomas, look.
Yeah,
Um
that was the time I fell
so
asleep.
yeah, which was when he was falling asleep. So I mean, there were things that we discovered that we would not have discovered if we just watched it once and then came on here and recorded a podcast. Um, but I'm also kind of like, I'm wondering if when they went to make the second movie, they already knew there was going to be a third movie. And this is kind of like the building stones for the third movie. And that's why it wasn't so scary. Because, with
But
some series, there's always at least one movie that's like, this is not as good as the other ones, but it's building up to stuff happening in other movies.
yeah, but there's a 5 year gap between the Conjuring 2 and the Conjuring the Devil made me do it, or the devil. Yeah, the devil made me do it.
Yeah. Which
Um,
doesn't necessarily mean that my theory is wrong. It
yeah.
just makes it less likely.
Well, so this is essentially what they did was, so they did the Conjuring, then they did Annabelle, then they did the Conjuring 2, then they did Annabelle Creation, then Annabelle Comes Home. I think The Nun came out in 2018, and then The Nun 2 just came out this year. So, and then obviously between 2018, they did The Devil Made Me Do It back in 2021, and then The Nun 2.
Yeah.
So, realistically, like, The Conjuring 2 is the third movie in the Conjuring universe. So, so you figured, like, if that was the case, Annabelle would have been the movie, because they would have
Yeah.
known that third one was coming out. But realistically, they knew Annabelle Creation was coming out, so maybe they put more thought process into that. But I think The Conjuring 2, though, had a different director. No, James Wan did it. And James Wan did the first one.
So who knows?
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I haven't seen Conjuring 3, so, and I'm assuming you haven't, since this was your first time seeing the second
No,
Conjuring.
I watched number 3.
Okay.
It was
Um,
on HBO Max, and I was bored.
yeah, no,
So,
like, don't give me any spoilers.
well, I mean, one spoiler is that it has nothing to do with any of the pre-established lore.
Okay.
So it sort of takes it in a different direction.
Interesting. Which, whether or not that's going to be our next movie is like a whole other question.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know originally you were like, let's watch Annabelle and the second Annabelle, which I have no desire to watch those movies because I really do not want to see creepy clown or creepy dolls,
I was about to say creepy clown. Well, you can watch Killer Clowns from Outer Space if you want creepy clowns.
which I don't want to watch that one either. But
That's a campy. I've seen it twice, I think, and honestly, it's it's a campy movie because it's like obviously over the top and everything, but at the same instance, like even I'm sort of like I can't fucking watch this movie. It just scares the shit out of me. But it's also creepy killer clowns, like, and that's I can't stand clowns. So,
Yeah.
which is
Um
funny because I can watch it no problem, perfectly fine with it. But the creepy clowns from outer space, like I don't know, it just fucks with me.
yeah. So but anyway, like so we don't know if we want to do Annabelle. So either the next one on our Conjuring journey
Mhm.
is we're just going to bite the bullet and watch the Annabelle movies or just watch Conjuring 3, right?
Yeah, so realistically, like if we're gonna take a break right now, I feel like now is the perfect place to do it because one, we're not being introduced to new characters. Two, we're not like going in a completely different direction, and like they were sort of letting their own entities be their own entities, right? So
Yeah.
like The Conjuring introduced us to the Warrens, and it introduced us to Annabelle, and it introduced us to the Nun, even though we indirectly didn't know it was the Nun,
Yeah.
right? Then um, the Conjuring, or then Annabelle gets made, which is its own movie, beginning of the Annabelle series, true beginning of the Annabelle series, right? Like you get to know more about Annabelle and her craziness, and then within the last 3 years, 4 years, 2018, 5 years, um, you get introduced to the Nun, and they're starting to do more with the Nun series. There's the Nun, the Nun Two. I think I read somewhere among the rumor mill. Again, I'm not 100% positive that they might do a Nun 3, and the Nun 3 sort of like is the wrap up to the Nun series because then it introduces. Well, technically, the Conjuring 2 is the end of the Nun universe, right? Where the Warrens essentially tell Valak to go back to hell.
Yeah.
But there might be like the Nun 3 where you can actually see Frankie get
Frenchie.
Frenchie. I couldn't remember his name. Frenchie get uh, exorcised. That doesn't sound right.
Gets his exorcism.
Exorcism. Yeah, there we go. So he gets that because that essentially leads into the Conjuring 2, right? So then you'd
Yeah.
have the Nun 3, which would be, or you'd have some sort of like segue because at the end of the Nun 2, you have this huge wide open gap because Frenchie gets exercised at that point too, where Valak is supposed to be long gone and forgotten. But at the beginning of The Conjuring, you see
He's not.
Frenchie on the exorcist table,
Yeah.
well, in a chair essentially,
Yeah.
but still. And that's where it's sort of like, where do
What?
we go from here? Like,
Yeah.
do we just finish off Annabelle, start a new series, or do we skip Annabelle and finish off the true Warren aspect where the Warrens go on a different adventure? Um, or do we just start something completely new? Because I was talking about doing a Scream marathon and doing maybe extra long podcast on all six Screams. Because realistically, if you're just going to watch Scream, you should just watch Scream 1 through 6 in one sitting. Like,
Yeah. Which is a
you're
lot.
yeah, it is a lot. And then we could literally have like a 10-hour podcast on like the lineage of Scream and who's who and what's what and who's cousins, you know.
Yeah, I don't think I could talk 10 hours about 6 movies.
I mean, if you do an hour a podcast, that's 6 hours. Add a half hour on there. That's 3 hours. That's like 9 hours right there.
Nah, I'm good.
But I mean, or we could do something completely different. I mean, it seems like a lot of scary movies. It is October, so that's, sort of goes hand in hand, right? But
Yeah, I mean it's almost Halloween, so I'm definitely good with um, keeping it um, with a scare theme of some sort. Um, but yeah, I really don't think I want to watch Annabelle. Like,
I watched Annabelle. I watched the original Annabelle. I think I saw it in theaters too. Um, Honestly, it's been a while, so I can't remember off the top of my head if it was like great or not, or how scared I was.
but also
But
your scared is different than my scared.
it's an evil, creepy doll, and it's not one of those. It's not like a new doll. It's not like Chucky or any of those. It's a porcelain doll that you saw like in the Victorian eras, and that's just a whole other level of creep factor, creepazoid, whatever creepy you want to call it. It's plain creepy.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have to have a discussion about that. Um, but as far as Conjuring 2 is concerned, I can kind of leave it out of the whole universe and not feel like I'm missing anything.
Yeah, I think I feel like in the whole scheme of things, they also did the introduction of the nun as like a shitty job, as a like a dirty thing, right? They did the nun dirty because like in the whole movie, super powerful, is able to block Lorraine's sight, um, all this stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then all it's like, oh, we know your name, bye bye, we know your name, you're going back, and it's like, what? Like that's what? And then when they go to the nun, like it's supposed to be the super powerful beast demon that killed all those nuns and everything, and they did that, like actually made sense. Like they actually had to use the blood of Christ to send it back to hell. In this, all they did was Lorraine. All she had to do was say its name. I commend you
And
back to hell.
you know what? So this is where they kind of need to like fill in some blanks because the end of Nun 2, we, it seems like the demon is gone. Frenchie and the little girl and her mom ride off to the sunset together, it looks like. But we know from the Conjuring 1 that the demon doesn't go away.
Well, we don't know the demon doesn't go away. We just know that Frenchie has been possessed by
Yeah,
something.
possessed or possessed again.
Yep.
And then you've got Lorraine has cast it off by saying its name. It's like, how many times do you exorcise, cast off, get rid of this one demon? Like, I feel like every little supernatural story we've ever been told is like, oh, once you can never kill a demon, it goes back to hell, but it will come back. It's just not in your lifetime. I don't feel like that's what's happening with this nun demon.
I mean, realistically, I don't know when the Warrens started doing their thing, but it looks like Frenchie has seen this demon. Once he sees it, and he never gets rid of it. It's part of his life indefinitely.
Yeah.
Which sucks for Frenchie. And they've exercised it. Like this is what was confusing to me. Like the nun from the movie The Nun. I can't think of her name. She spits a mouthful of Jesus' blood into the face.
Yeah.
And I think there might have been potentially open mouth. Blood in the mouth of the demon. And it gets sucked back to hell. if Frenchie had any part of the demon, my thought process is that thing should have done the same thing. It should have
Yeah.
pulled a supernatural, and smoke should have came out of his body and went back into the thing, right?
Yeah.
No, but we're saying that because it was in him, it doesn't matter. It was only okay, whatever, fine. Okay, I'll follow your logic, whatever. Then you have the nun too. Frenchie gets fully possessed, and then again, similar instance, the blood of Christ by gallons this time, not just a little mouthful,
Yeah.
like completely soaked to the bone. Is gets
Dumped on them.
yeah, and gets sent back to hell. And then all of a sudden, within 20 years, because I think the Nun 2 was in 57, Valak is back out in England raising a hellstorm. And the funny thing is, Frenchie is French Canadian. And he was traveling back to Europe. But they never ever specified if he stops in England. So there's this huge 20-year gap where you see and find out that Frenchie was still possessed at one point, and the Warrens somehow exorcised Valak, quote unquote, could have been Valak, could have been some other demon. We don't really know. And then within a couple years from there, Valak comes out full force and then gets sent back by just saying its name.
Yeah. So it's too confusing.
It's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the things, like, I never liked about, like, splitting off universes. Like, the only universe that I know that has ever split off reasonably well was Cheers to Frasier, because they didn't keep Frasier in Boston.
Yeah.
They moved Frasier to Seattle, where he would start a new life. And yes, some of his, you get introduced to more of his family and ex-wife and all this other stuff, because they move out there eventually. But it's a good break off. This, I fuck
Not
if
good.
I know. Fuck if I know.
I think if you really look into it, it just confuses you. Basically, bottom line. If you
Yeah,
just watch the movie, move on with your day, don't think about it twice, okay, it's just a form of entertainment. But if you start thinking, wait, how is that possible? Like, yeah.
and see, the other thing about this movie that I didn't necessarily enjoy, I understand, like, they had to put in an element of skepticism, like this may not potentially be happening, but the amount of times, and then the lady who was like, oh well, she's it was sort of like, it was almost too much. It
Yeah.
was too, because you had it right at the very beginning when the the doctor or whatever, um, from whatever university, trying to say that the Warrens had a hoax, were hoaxing people or taking advantage of people. And then there's this other woman who gets introduced, who you don't even, like, I don't even remember what they say she is. She's all like, it's a
She's
hoax,
like
it's
a
a hoax.
shrink or something like that.
Yeah. And then it just happens to be, and I know it's a foreshadowing event, or, that the daughter stages an event, which you find out later, like, there's a reason why she did it. She was being threatened by the demon that they killed the whole family, and it
Yeah.
was a way to get the Warrens and them out of there, so that way it didn't get exorcised. But still, it was still one of those things where, like, there could have been a better leeway, a better setup, a better something. You know, it's too coincidental that the person who is the skeptic saw the event and all these things,
Yeah.
compared to where it would have been made more sense, like, if one of the believers saw it happening and then they had to bring the news. to everyone, sort of thing. Where, of course, the skeptic is going to get what they want, right?
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, it would actually, yeah, it would have been more compelling. I was just like thinking about that for a minute. It would have been more compelling if it was a believer that saw. Like, I feel like they honestly, I don't think they even really needed that whole like, oh no, she's, quote unquote faking it. We've got it on camera. Everybody leaves until the dramatic moment when Ed realizes, oh no, it's for real. Listen to these two tape decks. I got this just idea in my head, and this could happen, and it is happening, and we got to go back and save the day. I don't feel like you needed all that.
Yeah, but I mean, it sort of makes it a little bit more dramatic, right? Because you have the Warrens out of the picture, and then the bad juju takes over again. Valak takes over and starts hovering everybody and kicking everyone out of the house and locking the doors behind. And then out of nowhere, the hero comes and saves the day, sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
Obviously, it's not out of nowhere, because obviously we see it going on. But that's the thing is where we are we are the viewer, we are the outside, so we get to see aspects. Well, we are told what we get to see, but we get to see what's happening where they're essentially supposed to be living it in real time, right?
yeah,
So, but you'd have had to take those elements out and then figure out a better option because realistically, you don't have the Warrens out of the house if they don't have that moment, right?
yeah.
So that's probably why they had to do it to ramp it up, and
But like honestly, like I was thinking about it, there you could have had another way to get this warrant out of the house.
oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, bottom line, we're basically what we're saying is this was our least favorite.
yeah. There's too many contradictions in the movie
Yeah,
where it's just sort of like what. And I feel like the premises behind it is that you're going in to watch it to be scared, to have that like
and you're
creep
not,
factor.
and you're not
Yeah,
scared.
and you're not like you're able to analyze the movie a little bit too much to be truly like if you're watching it and you're sort of like hmm you're not getting the emotional attachment that the movie should be trying to draw out.
Yeah, you're not shocked or scared or not enough of what you need
Yeah,
to. Yeah. Um. So yeah, I don't know if I'd watch it again.
I think I can take it or leave it. Like if we were doing a Conjuring Universe sort of thing, I could probably put it in there. But
Yeah, you
at the
kind of
same
have to.
but at the same instance, like if we are just watching movies, it wouldn't be like, oh, let's watch The Conjuring 2, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I might even like even if we were doing a Conjuring like marathon, I'd kind of even be like, do we have to do the second one? Can't we just skip it? We know what happens. You know.
Yeah, I mean, there's like, obviously, I've seen a lot of the same movies over and over again, especially my favorites and comedies and things of that nature. But at the same instance, though, like, it's one of those things where if there's a series and I know what's going to happen, if it's a good series, I still want to watch it.
Yeah.
Like the Scream 1 through 6. Like I'm perfectly content with watching those again, even though I've seen 1 through 4, God, who know how many times, comparatively, especially since Scream 1 came out. Where this, even though it's part of the series, like my instinct is to be like, it's part of the series, I have to watch it. It's
Yeah.
also like, uh, even though I know what happens and all this stuff, would I watch it again? Like, is it really that important to the saga that I watch this movie another time? And then
Yeah, do
I
I
don't.
really want to waste the hour and a half, 2 hours to watch this movie?
Yeah, I probably would not.
Yeah.
Realistic. So, rating 1 out of 5 ghosts.
Oh, we're doing ghosts now?
Isn't that what we did last time?
I think we're just doing a rating out of 1 out of 5.
I swear I did ghosts because it's spooky
Oh.
and it's also conjuring. So ghosts
I give it a 1.
a 1. I think I rated it 3 on Voodoo just because it wasn't like so watching a scary movie and being minimally scared, not high. It's obviously not a good rating. Too many questions on the structure and the layout of the movie. I'd give it like a 1.5, you know. Cuz at least like they didn't try and change the characters.
Yeah.
You know, Ed still wanted to go help the family because they've never not helped a family, which they did the same thing in The Conjuring. You know, Lorraine was still Lorraine, like, you know, I'm trying to protect my husband, sort of thing. Don't want anything to happen to him, which, you know, good on her. You know, I would say 1 out of 5 to 2, just because like they didn't like some movies try and change the characters between like you know movie 1 and movie 2. You know,
I mean, that being said, I'll give it the half, so 1.5.
yeah.
But
Outside of that, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I felt like the redeeming qualities weren't redeemable enough to be like to give it
or
a
even an
great
average
score.
rating.
Yeah, you
Like I
know,
said, it's kind of meh to me.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, it's about that hour mark, which was where we want to be. So, as always, thank you so much for listening to the pod. I think next time we'll try and incorporate a little bit more love into the movie. So that way we'll share our experiences with it, why we want to watch it, what it does for our relationship, as well as a movie overview. Um, because it is called Love and Movies. And right now, we're just
Talking in the movie.
talking about the movie.
Well, I
Um,
mean, for the Conjuring series, we're doing it because this is a chance. This is just for all the movies.
yeah.
I'm watching something that I am not into. Like, it's not what I would normally watch because it's the type of movies you like.
Yeah, but like, I mean, I understand that. But like, my thought process is like when you see Ed and Lorraine in these movies, like you see the love, the affection, the, you know, protection aspect and all these other things. Like, I'm talking like what we can take away as a couple sort of thing. Like obviously not every movie is going to have something like that. You know, like I would not say the Saw is going to have something like that. But you know, there's going to be instances where like I love a movie and you absolutely hate it, and it's sort of like one of those things where what do we do? You know,
Yeah.
how do we play this? You know, but at the same instance, like when I was watching scary movies, I'd watch them by myself, and you would do whatever you wanted by yourself, or you were doing something else. Like I would find time. It might not have been a lot of time, but I would find time to do
Watch them
those
without me. Yeah.
things. Yeah. So I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like we can talk more about the movies themselves, or not the movies, but like
Their effect
the
on our relationship.
yeah, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So on a scale of one. So we both are in agreement, though. Like, this movie would probably never watch. So for our relationship, we would not have to have a discussion on, that aspect. It's not going to affect our relationship in any way because I neither love nor hate it, and you feel the same way essentially. So we can just toss it in the, if it's a cold day and there's nothing else on TV, we could,
Yeah.
sort of thing.
If you really want to watch the
Yeah.
marathon in its entirety, kind of thing.
Yep. So, all right. And but outside of that, like I said, I want to thank everyone for listening. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the podcast on whatever platform you are listening to this to. We try and get them on all of them. We have a Discord. Yes, we do have a Discord. I will try and get those in the links. We have a YouTube channel. We're going to try and set that up so you can see our backgrounds and all the funny, crazy stuff that we have in our house. And it's actually just our hobbies and collections.
Yeah. Also, we are on Facebook as well as Instagram at Love and Pod or Love and Movies Pod. I keep wanting to make sure I don't say podcast, so I think that's why I keep saying pod first.
Yeah.
So Love and Movies Pod, and you can also email us at loveandmoviespod@gmail.com. Let us know what you think of the show. If you got any suggestions on, hey, you guys should watch this movie or that, let us know. And as always, guys, we will see you next time.
Have a great one.
Bye-bye.